Hello! In the following, I would like to present to you one of the core functions of the International Bureau, and that is international publication. I would like to discuss with you the content of the international publication, when will international publication take place, cases where an applicant requests early international publication, and some important time limits that apply in respect of international publication. I would also like to talk about the legal effects of international publication and then some particular cases where an applicant might be interested in either preventing or postponing international publication. So what is the content of the international publication? Well, what we always will publish here at the International Bureau is, first of all, a front page. And that front page will contain bibliographical data that we will have taken from the request form that the applicant has submitted at the time of filing, or any possible changes that were submitted afterwards concerning this bibliographical data. On the front page you will also find an abstract, and in cases where this is relevant, a figure that the applicant has selected and the International Searching Authority has approved as appearing on the front page of the international application. Of course, the international publication will also contain the main body of the international application, that is the description, the claims, and if there are drawings, of course, also the drawings, and in cases where there's a sequence listing, also the sequence listing. We will also publish the international search report to the extent that it's available at the time of publication. If it's only made available afterwards, we will of course republish the international application with the international search report. Now, there are of course some other circumstances where applicants might have submitted Article 19 amendments of the claims. Of course, they will also be published, and certain other issues like declarations, for instance, if the applicant has submitted declarations referred to in 417, those would also be published, but really that depends on what the applicant has done during the international phase. We will publish in one of the 10 publication languages under the PCT. The 10 publication languages are Arabic, Chinese, English, French, German, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, or Spanish. So if an international application is filed in one of those 10 languages, it will be published in that particular publication language. Do note, however, that on the front page, the title, the abstract, and then also the search report will always be published also in English. So if, for instance, the search report was established in Chinese, the International Bureau will translate the search report into English so that we can make both the search report in its original language and in its translation available to the public at international publication. How do we publish? Well, basically our publication is a pure electronic publication. You will find your publication on our internet site under PatentScope. PatentScope is a database where we keep all published international applications, and all new published international applications would also appear on the date of publication on PatentScope. Through PatentScope, actually also through some other means, but we do make the published international applications of course also available to the designated and elected offices. And for you to have proof that we have really made those published international applications available to the national offices, we issue a form to the applicant which is called PCT IB 308. And if ever you have a case where a national office would challenge that this application was not really made available to them, you can show them the form as a proof. Yes, it says on that form it has been made available to all designated or elected offices. So when will international publication actually take place? Well, the treaty says the International Bureau is obliged to publish international applications promptly after 18 months from the priority date. There could sometimes be a little bit of a delay of 1 or 2 weeks, but in general, we try to publish all international applications right after the 18-month anniversary from the priority date. Our publication takes place on a Thursday, but do note that sometimes we're closed for official business on a Thursday, and in those cases publication couldn't take place on a Thursday. It usually then takes place on the preceding Wednesday, but it could also be a different date. If in a particular case you really need to know when your international application will be published, you can inquire the precise date of publication from the International Bureau. Do note, however, you can't simply give us a call, because if you call us, we don't really know who you are, and we're not entitled to give any information about unpublished international applications to someone that we do not know. So what you can do in this case, you can either give us a call and leave us a fax number, and we'll fax back to you the date of publication of your particular application, or you send us a fax with a telephone number, and then we can call back at that telephone number and give you the precise date of publication for your particular international application. Sometimes applicants also wish us to publish their international applications early, and this is possible. They need to expressly request it, and if at the time of the request the international search report is not yet available to the International Bureau, we will charge the applicant a particular fee for early publication. Why is that? Because in a case where we publish and we don't have the search report yet, we are obliged to republish this international application upon receipt of the international search report, and that is the reason why there is a special fee associated with such requests for early publication in cases where the search report is not yet available to the International Bureau. There are some other important time limits that you need to keep in mind when you think about international publication. And that other important time limit that I wish to refer you to is the time limit that we need to complete technical preparations for international publication. We basically need a certain amount of time to prepare each and every international application for publication. And the time that we need is 15 calendar days prior to scheduled international publication. So calendar days, not working days, so it includes weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. And we need these 15 calendar days prior to scheduled international publication to prepare those applications for publication. So if you take a look at an example, for instance, so we publish on a usual Thursday, and then completion of technical preparation would take place 2 weeks earlier, which would take you to Wednesday. But actually, really, if you want to submit something to us and that we can still take it into account for the purposes of international publication, it would need to get to us on the Tuesday, 2 weeks earlier from the scheduled publication date, midnight Geneva time. If we get it before that time limit, we can still take it into account for the purposes of international publication. If we get it after that time limit, we cannot take it into account. And this is really the reason why this time limit of completion of technical preparations, technical preparation is very important for applicants. Do watch out a little though for cases where international publication exceptionally does not take place on a Thursday. So if it takes place, let's say, on the preceding Wednesdays, then of course also the time limit for completion of technical preparations is shifted to an earlier day, and you need to take account of that earlier time limit in this particular case. And as I said, this is really important for all instances where you wish to submit something to us and you want to have this submission at the International Bureau in time for us to still take a particular action. So what cases am I thinking about? For instance, if you want to record a new applicant and you want the new applicant to be on the front page of the international publication, you need to submit your 92-bis request to the International Bureau before completion of technical preparation. So maybe even more importantly, if you want to withdraw your international application because you decide you want to keep it secret, you don't want it to be published, you need to have your notice of withdrawal submitted to the International Bureau before completion of technical preparation, those 15 calendar days that I just talked about. So what are the legal effects of the international publication? Well, the most straightforward legal effect, of course, is that as of the international publication date, your application becomes part of the prior art, just like a national publication. Maybe less obvious is that with international publication, applicants could possibly get access to something that we refer to as provisional protection. What is provisional protection? Well, usually an applicant who has filed an application and eventually has a patent granted to him is entitled to sue any potential infringer of his patent right as of the date of the patent grant. But some national offices have extended this somewhat further and have said it is actually fair that if the claims as published and the claims as granted are more or less the same or substantially the same, then it would be fair if that particular patent or future patent owner would also be entitled to get compensation from a potential infringer back to the date of the publication of the particular application. And so this also applies under the PCT for the purposes of the international publication, but whether it applies before a particular designated office really depends on the national law of this particular office. So first of all, the national law of a particular state needs to provide for it, and then you need to make sure that you comply with the particular provisions and requirements that could apply under the various national laws. And for details of what exactly needs to be complied with, take a look at the PCT Applicant's Guide at Annex B of that guide. There we have detailed information that was provided to us by those states which provide for provisional protection, what their particular requirements are, so that an applicant could potentially rely on provisional protection. There might sometimes be instances where an applicant might wish to either prevent international publication or to postpone international publication. So how could he go about this? Well, preventing international publication is really only possible if an applicant files a notice of withdrawal of the international application itself. Of course you can do that, but you need to realize if you file a notice of withdrawal of your application, well, that's the end of your international application. But if we get it before completion of technical preparations for international publication, we can stop the international publication. So what do you need to do? You need to file with the International Bureau a notice of withdrawal. Do file them directly with us because we're the authority publishing the application. So we need to have that notice before completion of technical preparations. It has to be in writing. We recommend that you use Form PCT IB 372, which is available on our website, and you can fill it in with the relevant details. Submit that to us. It needs to be signed by all applicants or by someone who can represent all applicants. And as I said, it needs to get to us more than 15 calendar days prior to scheduled international publication. We do recommend, if you're up against the time limit, that you also include a particular safeguard in your notice of withdrawal. And that safeguard reads in a notice that you maybe have drafted yourself, something along the lines that you only wish the notice of withdrawal to be effective if it reaches the International Bureau in time for the IB to stop international publication. We have that kind of language also in the form PCT IB 372, and you can rely on it when you use that particular form. The purpose of this safeguard really is to prevent, so to speak, the worst case scenario, that you file a notice of withdrawal which is effective, but it comes to us too late to prevent international publication. Then you will have a published case which is then withdrawn, and arguably this is a worst case scenario. So in a case where we get it too late to stop international publication, we would then basically not take action on your withdrawal. So this is what the safeguard is all about. Result, of course, of all of this is that your international application will be considered withdrawn or is withdrawn, and publication will not take place if it reaches us in time. A bit similarly, you can also try to postpone international publication. And to do this, you need to file, again, a notice of withdrawal, but in this case, you withdraw your earliest priority claim. If you only have one priority claim, you withdraw that priority claim, and then basically all time limits which have not yet expired will be recalculated. I'll come back to that in a moment. So procedurally, how can you go about this? Again, you need to do it in writing. We recommend that you use the form which I mentioned earlier. Also, this notice needs to be signed by all applicants or on their behalf, and we need to get that notice before completion of technical preparations for international publication. Again, also here you can put the safeguard clause into your notice of withdrawal, and again, it is contained in our form. So the results of the withdrawal of such a priority claim would be that you will necessarily get a new priority date. In an example that I've given earlier where you only have one priority claim, if you withdraw that priority claim, your priority date will become the international filing date. And all time limits which haven't yet expired at the time when you submit your notice of withdrawal will be recalculated based on the new priority date, which is now your international filing date. So sometimes applicants do this when they wish to postpone the time limit of 30 months from the priority date to enter national phase. So they file a notice of withdrawal of that priority claim, and that way they could gain additional time. Or if they wish to, in this context, postpone international publication, they submit this notice just before completion of technical preparation, and then international publication will take place maybe even a year later than previously foreseen, because let's say their priority claim or their international application was filed at the end of the priority period, at the end of 12 months from their priority claim. Of course, you can do that. You can postpone international publication this way, but you need to be very careful because of the substantive consequences of such a withdrawal. If all of a sudden you don't have your priority claim anymore, you are exposed to any intervening prior art that might be out there, and this intervening prior art can be held against you when you later on enter the national phase. So it's easy to do, but the consequence might be that your claims all of a sudden are not considered novel or inventive anymore, and you might ultimately not get a patent granted on your application at all. So be very careful about using this tool of withdrawing a priority claim just to postpone international publication. So, in this presentation, I hope you learned a little bit about what we publish at the International Bureau, how we publish, and at what time the International Bureau publishes international applications. And one very important time limit to keep in mind in the context of international publication is the time limit of completion of technical preparations, and you really need to keep that time limit in mind. If you want to submit something that we should still reflect in the international publication, you need to submit it before the expiration of that particular time limit.